Well, hello, all of my students. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Welcome to another episode of Improved English. I am your host, Jay. And like all of my English videos, I have the opportunity to help you with your English vocabulary, comprehension, and your English fluency. And if this is your first time watching one of the podcast episodes, I do the podcast once a week, usually on the weekend. That's the best time for me. So you can look for new episodes every Saturday morning or afternoon, somewhere thereabout. But I do them on the weekend, and throughout the week, I have a great time making English videos to help you guys improve your English. So let me tell you how I came about today's episode. I mentioned one of my experiences earlier this week. I met one of my neighbors. Actually, I did a poll on my community tab here on YouTube, and I was speaking about how I met my neighbor this week, and I found out that they have cats, which I knew about, goats, which I have seen, chickens, hens, roosters, which I've been hearing on a daily basis early in the morning. And I found out that roosters crow in the evening time as well. They also have, what else do they have? They have a pigeon, which is a homing pigeon that has gotten lost and made their home or made its home at their house. My neighbor was telling me that the homing pigeon tag says that it is from New York. And we are here in Georgia. And instead of flying back home for whatever reason, the pigeon likes staying with them and has been living with them for some time now. And so my neighbor named the pigeon Hawkeye. And of course, I went to try to pet and feed Hawkeye, and he flew into a tree, but he doesn't know me, so I understand that. So after meeting all of these pets, and let me tell you, so I asked my neighbor, how did she end up getting the goats? Because she is Hispanic. And I asked one of my other Hispanic friends, I said, hey, I got a neighbor who's Hispanic and they have these goats. What are they going to do with those goats? Why do they have them? He said, they're probably going to eat them. And so I told my wife, I said, look, when I get the opportunity and I see my neighbors outside with those animals, I am going over there and I'm going to ask them about the goats. And so the day after I was speaking to my wife, my neighbor came to our house, knocked on the door, and she had bagfuls of vegetables from her garden that she was sharing with us. Tomatoes, jalapeno peppers. Actually, they were habanero, and so they were very hot. And she had something, I can't remember what it's called, but it looks like a potato. Or she said it tastes like a potato, and it's long, and it was kind of like brown, and the meat was white on the inside. And we didn't get to cook it because it went bad, but my neighbor and my wife's coworker said they are really good. I can't remember what they're called. And so I asked her about the goats. I said, look, what's up with these two goats at your house? And she tells me, she said, well, my neighbor from Mexico, her friend from Mexico, had a goat that was injured and they thought was going to not make it. So they had to go out of town and didn't have time to care for it. So they asked, could they watch the goat while she returned to Mexico for 2 weeks? And so this is the story. I'm telling you the story as my neighbor told it. So they brought the crippled goats to the house, and they expected, at least the owner of the goat expected them to die because it was crippled. It wasn't walking. It was small at the time, and really they just thought they were going to let her hold them, and when they got back from Mexico, they would be dead. So she told me that my neighbor, her husband went in there. He said he loves animals. He said he got down on his knees and he prayed, put his hands on the goat and said, "Dear God, if you want this goat to live, let him live. If not, I'll let him go, whatever you decide." He said right after he prayed, a few hours later, for the first time, the goat got up, started walking, and now the goat is an adult and running around the yard. I said, that's a miracle. And so he's been happy. And I asked her, I said, so are y'all going to eat the goats? And she said, no, we're not going to eat them. They're just pets now. So they have two goats. The male is named Rambo, and the female's name is Lula. And so those are the goats. They have, oh my goodness, they have a hen, a rooster, and a whole bunch of other chickens, and just a lot going on. And so, which brings me to this week. I made a post on my community tab, and I asked people, some of my students, I said, what type pets do you have? Do you have goats, chickens, dogs, or nothing? And most of my response said that they have dogs and cats. And one person responded by saying that they have, I believe it was a cat and 3 rescue dogs. And I said, wow, that's a lot of pets, 4 pets at the house. So if you have more than 4 pets, let me know down in the comments section. And so I got to thinking that would be a great conversation and vocabulary words to talk about here on the channel when it comes to rescue pets. And so that's what I want to do on today. I want to talk about vocabulary that has to do with rescue pets and animals, okay? So let's get into it. I'm not going to do a normal story like I normally do. I'm going to go over some vocabulary. So the first word is a shelter. A shelter is a place that provides temporary housing and care for homeless or abandoned animals, okay? A shelter. So you actually have some people that have their home as a shelter, or they may have it set up in their backyard where they can care for animals until someone adopts them. We have a television show here in America that talks about rescue animals that were abandoned, lost, or homeless because of severe weather, like a tornado or a hurricane. And so the person would take the animals in the shelter and care for them until someone would adopt them. So that's what a shelter is. A shelter is also like my home where I live. This is my shelter, my house. Okay, it shelters me. So you might say in a sentence, the animal shelter was filled with cats and dogs, okay, waiting for an owner to take them home. Or you might say the shelter provides food, medical care, and a safe place for animals. And it's not just cats and dogs. It could be cows. It could be sheep. It could be birds. I've seen on television some shelters have like snakes that people use as pets that have been abandoned or lost. And here in America, Florida is running over with pythons. People would keep pythons as pets, and then once they got too big, they would just let them loose in the Everglades. And it is being reported that there is abundance of anacondas, or not anacondas, but pythons loose in Florida. Okay, adoption. Hold on one second. Oh, my nose was itching. Adoption. The process of taking an animal into one's home and providing it with permanent care. Adoption. So you might say adopt, adopted, or adopts. Okay. And so that's the process of taking an animal in to keep them for yourself. Okay. So you might say the adoption of the kitten was finalized, or you might say adoption events help many animals find their home. Okay. All right. So another vocabulary word that has to do with rescue animals is foster. To provide temporary care for an animal until a permanent home is found. So, like I was saying earlier, my neighbor was fostering the goats until her friend returned from Mexico. Okay. My son has a cute dog. Oh, he's so cute. And when he goes out of town, he has to find someone to foster his dog. And my wife, she will not let me have any animals here. She's kind of afraid of animals. Okay. If they're behind a fence, maybe she'll look. But as far as having animals up on her, no, there will be no fostering of any animals here at the house of Jay. So, okay, another word, rehabilitation. Rehabilitation, the process of restoring an animal to health and normal life through therapy and care. So to rehabilitate. So remember when I was telling you the goat was not walking, it needed rehabilitation. Okay. In that case, they gave the goat prayer and the prayer worked. So, but some animals, like humans, need therapy. They need special attention or care. So you might say the rehabilitation of the injured bird took several months. Speaking of an injured animal, I tell you guys that I feed the deer here that come in my yard. I saw a deer recently that was in my yard, and it's like his lip was hanging over like that. I don't know. I couldn't get close enough to see what was going on, but I'd never seen anything like that. Maybe their mouth got hung on barbed wire, or maybe it was in a fight with another animal, or maybe something bit it. I don't know, but it was very strange. I've seen a bird have an injured leg, and it was, the leg was bent like this. And so it was just odd looking, but the bird could fly. It was eating the bird food here, but it needed rehabilitation. Okay. All right. Another word for rescue animals is rescued. Saved from a dangerous, distressing, or harmful situation. So one of my neighbors who has moved now, she had 3 rescue dogs. And one of her dogs was abused by one of its owners. It had a male owner, and he would, I don't know, beat the dog or something. And so she told me, she said, look, this one dog that I have, he's abused or was abused, and she does not like men. And it can tell, even if you're not going to harm her, because of her past abuse, she doesn't like men. I said, wow, isn't that amazing? And so I've come to find out that there are some animals that people have rescued that because they have been abused, they may not do well with children. They may not do well with women. They may not do well with men, as I stated. I was reading about one particular dog, a Doberman Pinscher. I like Doberman Pinschers and what do you call them? German Shepherds. Hold on, my nose is itching again. Okay, I don't know what it is. I didn't want to dig in my nose or scratch my nose while I'm on film. But it was saying that this particular dog, it jumped on the child because it was not comfortable being around children. And so they had to give the dog up for adoption. Isn't that crazy? To where your dog would jump on a family member because it was not comfortable around them? That's wild to me. I don't know if you've had that experience before. Let me know. Have you had that experience before? Let me know down in the comments section. Okay, another word that has to do with rescue animals is sanctuary, a place where animals are protected and allowed to live safely. Okay, so that kind of reminds me of the word shelter. Okay, so they primarily mean the same thing, a safe place where animals can be raised, a sanctuary. Now, in this country, we primarily use the word sanctuary as a place of worship, okay, a church, okay, where people go to hear the word of God or worship God, a sanctuary. But then you could use sanctuary, or it has been used like a sanctuary city, okay, a safe city, okay, where people may go that may be from exile. They're looking for sanctuary. They're looking for safety, okay? All right. Another word is a forever home. Forever home. A permanent home where a rescued animal will live for the rest of its life. And that reminds me of foster home would be the opposite. A forever home is where they live. A foster home is where you stay, or the animal would live until someone adopts them into a forever home. So you might say, after months in the shelter, the dog finally found his forever home. Okay? Forever home. Animal control. We have animal control here. Animal control. The service or authority responsible for enforcing laws related to animal care and safety. Animal control. So if you are like, oh my goodness, I think I have a mustache hair that keeps going to my nostril, to my nose, and it's making me want to scratch it. And it's making it very irritating. That's why I keep messing with my nose. But I have some neighbors that live behind me, and they raise and breed animals. They have all kind of animals, and they have hound dogs. Oh my goodness. And they bark all the time. They can tell when I'm in the backyard. Sometimes when I record a video outside, you can hear the dogs barking because they can smell me. Hound dogs have very sensitive nose, or a very sensitive sense of smell, a keen sense of smell. And so they can smell me. When they start barking, I know that there's a deer in the backyard. Okay. And so my other neighbor, she gets tired of the barking. So she calls animal control. Okay. And they call them or come out and say, tell those dogs be quiet. Animal control. Rehoming. Rehoming. The process of finding a new home for an animal. Typically one that has been rescued. So I'm assuming from the definition, rehoming would be, let's say I had a dog and it wasn't doing good here. I would send it to a shelter until it was rehomed or until it was found or it has found a forever home. Okay. Or if a dog was lost because of a tornado, it needs to be rehomed. Someone else needs to adopt it. Okay. Okay, I'm almost done here. Let's see. Foster family. A family that provides temporary care for an animal until it is adopted. So you have the foster home and then you have the foster family. So the person that takes the dog is called the foster family until they find a forever home. Okay. Animal welfare. The well-being and humane treatment of animals. Animal welfare. So a person that mistreats their pet or animal does not have good animal welfare. Yeah. Or a person that takes extreme good care of their animal has the proper animal welfare. That's good. A rehabilitation center. Rehabilitation center. A facility dedicated to the recovery and care of injured or ill animals. I don't know. I don't think I've seen, usually when I talk to people that have had an ill animal, they tell me usually they go and get it put down, as we say, put asleep. Actually, my neighbor that I told you about with the goats, the one that prayed over the goat, the cats that he had one cat that became very ill, and he told me it cost $1,200 to get the cat rehabilitated back to normal health. And get this, the cat wasn't even his. It was a stray cat that he took in, and he spent $1,200 to get the animal fixed. Would you do that? $1,200 for an animal that was a stray that you took in? Wow, that's a lot of money. How much have you spent on your pet's surgery? I'm curious. That's the most I've ever heard of anyone spending $1,200. Let me know down in the comments section. Now, this is very popular, okay? And this will be our last one. Spay or neuter. Okay, this is a surgical procedure to prevent animals from reproducing. So we have a show here in the United States called The Price is Right. And back in the 80s, Bob Barker was the host. And at the end of The Price is Right, he would always say, don't forget to get your pet spaded or neutered. Especially, he would say, your cat. Because cats, oh my goodness, they have kittens by the litter. And at one point, the United States was very overpopulated with cats. And so to have them spaded or neutered to where they can't reproduce. We like to say it like this: get your animals snipped. And that's what we say with men here that have the surgery called a vasectomy. They get snipped to where they can't get a woman pregnant. I know 2 men who have had the snipping. Okay, 2 men I know that have a vasectomy, and I am not one of them. So that's going to do it for today's podcast episode. I've given you at least 13 to 14 different vocabulary words that have to do with animal shelter. Let's go through some of them one last time quickly. Okay, we have shelter, adoption, foster, rehabilitation, rescued, sanctuary, forever home, animal control, rehoming, foster family, and this one is rescue operation, animal welfare, rehabilitation center, spay or neuter. Okay. So I hope you have enjoyed today's podcast episode. Be sure to drop down in the description of today's episode and utilize some of my links where you can take advantage of some of my free English lessons here on YouTube. And if you would like to schedule a personal tutoring session with me, I do one-on-one tutoring sessions, and you can book a time with me down in the description by following that link. And if you can't use the link in your country, if it won't let you do it, just email me. Go to my website and just send me a email message, and we'll set up a time and try to work it out. Okay, well, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you join me next week. Episode 13, Improve English Podcast. My name is Jay. Enjoy the rest of your evening.